Ladies and gentlemen, news in South Africa is actually ramping up at a really fast rate, specifically with the war going on between Iran and Israel, and now potentially the United States. But before we get on to the main news story of today and how it affects all of us, can I yet again remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to support the work that I do here, you're welcome to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description box below. So let's move on to the first news article. And this is in relation to the ICJ case which South Africa is pushing against Israel. Now, for those of you who don't recall, there was an allegation that Iran was funding the conflict. And now, obviously, without Iran, one has to ask the question, who's funding the ICJ case? Don't know. Just an allegation. But in any case, Foreign Minister Ronald Lamola affirmed South Africa's unwavering commitment to the genocide case against Israel, which they filed underneath the Genocide Convention. Now, support has come from the Hague Group. The Hague Group includes countries like Ireland, Spain, Turkey, Malaysia, and some parties have actually withdrawn from the Hague Group, saying that they no longer support the action against Israel. As an example, Nicaragua. But in any case, Ronald Lamola emphasized that there's a 0.1% chance that SA will withdraw from the case. He says that actually the case itself reinforces the South African role as an international justice leader. So again, it's more of this moral grandstanding bull rubbish. Now, you see, the reason this is important is because the case itself is deemed to be one of the key issues which the United States seems to have with South Africa, allegedly. Now, this in itself means that South Africa may lose its AGOA trade preferences over the legal stance and also, let us not forget, the land expropriation policies. Now, as you know, losing AGOA would cost South Africa billions, and the DA itself warns that this ideological grandstanding may harm the working class households. But at the end of the day, what we are noticing is that South Africa seems to think that its regional influence and its global commerce are all tied to its moral grandstanding, which, to be honest, is just stupid. In any case, let's actually move on to the story of the embassy. Now, if you don't recall, the EFF and the MK party all demanded that the embassy to Israel be closed. And I think it was supposed to be, but hasn't actually yet been done. Well, a question was led by the EFF stooges saying that why hasn't this closure actually occurred, and an immediate closure is required. Then they asked the ANC why they haven't done it. Well, the ANC said that there are expectations that they'll stand by the decision to close the embassy, but they'll confirm that by the year end. Now, DIRCO's minister, Nalandi Pandor, at the time, remember she's not the DIRCO minister anymore, said that the decision will be objective and independent with no foreign influence. So they're not going to be pushed into making decisions by anyone. It's just independent. But we all know that that's not true, with many individuals saying that actually the move was pushed by Qatar and Iran, allegedly. Now, will actually they reverse this decision? Well, Parliament under the last administration already passed a resolution which triggered the shutting of the Israeli embassy in Pretoria. And so the question now is, well, are they standing by that decision? Well, in typical fashion, you know what the ANC is like. If we agreed in the last administration, even though we don't have the power now, well, we're standing by what we agreed then, so do one. Now, that's just how they work, and what can I say? Now, moving on to the clowns in chief, also known as the ANC, Ramaphosa was meant to meet Donald Trump at the G7. And the purpose of that meeting at the G7, you will recall, I did some videos on this, was actually to discuss AGOA and trade relations between the United States and South Africa. Really important because, as you'll know, the suspending of the tariffs were only for a short term. That's a suspension of the tariffs up to 30% on South African goods. And it was meant to be suspended in the short term whilst they agreed a new agreement, which hasn't actually done. There's been nothing done at all. And the news had been that Donald Trump would discuss this with Ramaphosa when they met at the G7. Well, the news now is they didn't meet. Now, the reason they didn't meet is because obviously Iran and Israel are having a powwow. And as part of that powwow, well, Donald Trump went home. Some people said that it was to negotiate a peace agreement between Iran and Israel, but the news now out is that he went home in order to get and I quote, unconditional surrender from Iran. So what that meant is that, well, he stood up Ramaphosa. Now, the presidency said that actually there was never a formal appointment scheduled, so he wasn't stood up, and it was only a working level interaction, even though the whole point of it was meant to be to discuss trade relations, specifically around the renewal of AGOA. So what we're actually seeing is that South Africa is trying to fix the optics of this matter, because what's actually happened is Ramaphosa looks like a tool. Looks like he got stood up, like he was just like an afterthought, like you mean nothing to me. And to a degree, that's exactly how the United States views South Africa. We are like an insect at the bottom of their foot. We represent like nothing in terms of trade. We're a tin-pot little country, and he felt he had more important things to deal with, like the ANC's funders. And so I have to ask the question, actually looking at all of these issues, there's the case now against Israel, which has been funded, allegedly, by Iran, but Iran's on the way out. As a byproduct of this, they shut the embassy, but that's looking like it now might be contentious. And now we've got AGOA being problematic. And so the question really becomes, well, what now for South Africa? And I wish I really had the answer, but it's not looking good for the administration now, is it? Now, talking of what also doesn't look good for the administration, this is the news that the DRC troops, now if you don't recall, the DRC troops were escorted out of the DRC into Rwanda, treated like prisoners of war, and then sent back to South Africa. And they were all going to get a grandstanding ovation and well done, thanks for coming back to South Africa. And the minister, who I must remind you that right now, this is the same minister who's just been appointed as the president whilst Ramaphosa is away. So this is technically the president as of today. It's a real story. Now, this is Minister Angie, and she basically went to the Bloemfontein airport to meet the DRC peacekeepers who weren't there. They were at the Waterkloof airport. So she went there with families to get the troops, but went to the wrong airport. I mean, that's just incompetence of the highest order. I mean, how embarrassing. Yeah, that's currently our acting president whilst Ramaphosa is abroad. ANC are a joke, and it's very difficult to see ANC as being anything but a joke. So where are we at the moment? Well, South Africa says that it's reinforcing its global ties with BRICS in the global south, whilst obviously there's dissent going on with the West. And what this means is that we're expecting some forms of economic anxiety. We're having this economic anxiety because of South Africa's so-called grandstanding for international justice. But it's just bollocks, because at the moment the ANC has to juggle economic warnings. They've got the EFF's radical diplomacy policies. They've got international lobbying interests. They've got ICJ cases. They've got embassy verdicts. They've got AGOA. They've got all this military bull rubbishness going on. I don't envy the ANC, because they've engineered a situation for themselves that's no win. They cannot win this. There is no positive outcome for them. They've supported the wrong side for a very long time. And people like you and me have suffered for it. They've supported the wrong cause in the name of self-interest for just too long. And everything's now coming to a head. And you can see the ANC are going to struggle. It's likely AGOA will not be renewed, or we will have the tariffs hit us. It's going to be massive job losses. We've alienated ourselves from certain people that could be allies to us. And all we had to do was take that idea of the middle road approach. Our supposed true independence. Remember, the whole point of us not siding with Russia or Ukraine is because we're purely independent. We're like proper independent, except when it came to Iran, Gaza, Israel, there's no independence there whatsoever. And we saw for the longest time the antagonism that they approached the United States with. Well, it's all come to a head. And the roosters are making their noise. So now what? What are you going to do, ANC? The roosters have come home. There's no eggs. There's no nothing. People are going to get angry. And they're going to get angry because of you. You did this to yourself. That's just my views. Do let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until tomorrow, bye.
What is your advice for young people who drink alcohol?
That they should not forget to put ice in it.
But what is not being disputed among scholars is you cannot have a permanent peace. You cannot. This is not allowed in Islam.
The kuffar from Dar al-Harb, there can never be a permanent treaty with the kuffar because it cancels out jihad and because of the verse فَلَا تَهِنُوا وَتَدْعُوا إِلَى السَّلْمِ وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ وَاللَّهُ مَعَكُمْ وَلَن يَتِرَكُمْ أَعْمَالَكُم. It can't be forever. When Muslims get stronger and it's a benefit for the Muslims, they inform the enemy, this treaty has come to an end.
Said, Al-jihadu ma'din fi ummati ila yawm al-qiyamah. The jihad is going to continue in my ummah until the day of resurrection.
So what is that saying? You go for peace when you don't have the upper hand, and when you are ready, you slaughter them all. And this was the tactic of the filthy dog Muhammad. And if you are a Jew or a Christian or a Hindu or a Buddhist, I don't care who you are, or an atheist, stupid you are if you think that this religion can ever bring peace anywhere in the world. Anywhere. Because remember, we are talking about religion, not about people.